Today's episode is brought to you by AgriSA, a South African investor specializing in agriculture. AgriSA founders originate from the farming community and have experienced how financial markets don't understand agricultural sector needs. They have thus fundraised from JSE investors to make money work for everyone. AgriSA offers a wide range of solutions, be it working capital, new equipment, new plantings and farm purchases. Whenever there is business potential, there is a way to make it happen. AgriSA, fair funding for agriculture. For more information about funding options, visit agrias.co.za, a product of 274 Investment Managers. An authorized financial services provider, 31045.
Good afternoon. We are fortunate enough to have Dawie Maree with us in the studio today. Dawie's from FNB. But I think please introduce yourself for the few that don't know you as to who you are, you're not the cashier at FNB.
And thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Louise. Thanks, Dewald. Yeah, I'm fortunately not a teller or a bank manager or anything like that, because I must be honest, that's one of the jobs I don't want in the bank. So, no, I'm head of information and marketing at FNB Agriculture. So, okay. I always say to people, and my colleagues mustn't hear this, but I've got the luckiest job in the bank. So I don't have to worry too much about loans and credit and stuff, but I meet lovely people and I meet farmers and I travel the country to speak to people and to get the message of FNB out there, but also the information side. You know, agriculture is so nice. There's never a dull moment and every day is different. So we deal with commodities from berries to sheep to goats to avos, everything in between. So that's the nice part of my job.
Sure.
Yes, it must be pretty incredible to actually go across the board, because most people are kind of stuck in a commodity space, and to be able to go and see, and then it must also allow you to see trends that are affecting all the commodities.
Yeah.
So that's the opportunity and the privilege to go across all the commodities and saying, but hang on, I've seen the same thing somewhere else. Are you seeing that sort of thing?
But before you go there,
you see, I val my altyd in die rede. It never stops.
But that's the last thing of conversations.
But how did you get to where you are now? Who was Dawie before FNB?
Okay. So that's a funny and not a long story, but actually, let's call it a funny story. So I grew up on a farm in the Northwest Province. Small town, Ventersdorp.
Okay. AVB Central.
Yes. That's how people remember that. So I grew up there, mixed farming operation, and my dad used to be the assistant manager of the local co-op when it was Central West in those days. It's now Senwest. But we farmed part-time, or actually farmed full-time and worked part-time. It depends on how you look at it. And then I matriculated at Ventersdorp, which is not a big school. But I had the idea to go and study actuarial science, because that's where the money was at that stage. I think it still is. But in any case, in my matric exams, my maths points wasn't what it should be. So when I started at the University of Pretoria day one, I didn't know what I was going to study. So everybody get together and they said, okay, medical students, you go there, BCom, you go there, everything in the other.
So did you choose the shortest line?
We
stood in one of the lines.
Exactly. No. What happened then is those that hadn't had a group, they sent us off to a building and said, okay, but what are you going to do? Make a choice. And they put the book in my hand and I said, okay, you must start looking. I said, okay. And then I get to BSc Agricultural Economics. I said, but okay, this is nice. It's numbers, it's accounting and stuff, but it's also the farming side. You know,
Okay.
the practical veekunde and plant production and soil science and everything. I said, I want to do this. And that's how I landed up as an agriculture economist.
Okay.
So I studied, and then I started with my MSc as well. And then I got a bursary from the University of Antwerp in Belgium
Oh, wow.
to do an MBA there. So
Okay.
I paused my studies here and I did a 1-year MBA in Belgium and came back to finish
Sure.
my MSc Agriculture Economics. Then I started to work with a commodity organization, the Milk Producers Organization.
Okay.
So that's why I don't have hair, because of the dairy farmers. They gave me a lot of trouble, but that was the best, training ground for any
Yeah, learning school.
agriculture economist is a commodity organization. I was with them for about 6 years, and then I've joined AgriSA as the senior economist there, and that widened it. So from a single commodity, being dairy, to AgriSA, the multitude of all the commodities together. And I was there for 6 years, and now 10.5 years ago, I've joined FNB as head of information and marketing.
Oh, wow.
So that's how and I must say, while I was studying, I said I will never work for a bank. Because at that stage, when I was studying, agriculture economists in banks, it wasn't nice. And I will never work in Pretoria, in Joburg, and stay in Pretoria. And I've done those two on the same day. So never say never. Am I regretting my decision? No, never. I'm really honored to be part of the FNB team. Okay. Even though I have to sometimes
Wonderful.
travel to Joburg, but we're getting past that as well.
You got to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
Now I'm intrigued. Antwerp, as a young man, going there, that must have been quite something. The Flemish, it's something different.
Yeah.
There's some crossovers with Afrikaans.
Yeah.
And some cultural connections. That must have been quite something.
That was, I think, the most interesting year of all my studies, because the MBA was done in Flemish.
Oh, wow.
So all the classes was in Flemish. The handbooks was in
So
Flemish.
you can Vlaams.
I can Vlaams.
Wow.
I've lost a bit of it because
Yes,
you don't
of
speak
course.
it a lot. But for the first 3 weeks it was terrible. It was, but then you pick it up and then you go with it. So I studied in Flemish, but I wrote all my exams in English.
Okay.
Because
Of course.
the writing is a bit different, but the reading is completely
Incredible.
the same. And yeah, so
Yes, Flemish is interesting. It's actually almost closer to Afrikaans than Dutch is.
it's more Afrikaans than Dutch.
Yes.
Yeah. No,
Yes.
definitely. Although there's a couple of dialects in
Yes, of
Flemish, that you wouldn't understand. But if you pick it up, then you run with it.
And the city and the culture, did you enjoy that?
Yeah, no. Well, before I went, I did some research and I saw there was at that stage 440 different beers.
Oh,
I said,
well, there's
I'm
one
going
for
to,
every day.
There's one for every day plus.
Yes.
And I tried to drink all of them at least once, but I couldn't do that. So, but beer and fritter,
Yes.
which we know as
Vlaamse
slop chips,
friet,
Vlaamse
yes.
friet. We know it as slop chips. That was my base.
Yes.
My basic food stuff.
As it should be for a student.
And you've got loof in between somewhere there.
Yeah.
Okay, how interesting. Sorry that I took you down a wormhole there, but
no, it's
it's pretty cool.
and I still have contact with some of my fellow students there. So
When you
that's
do
nice.
something like that when you're young,
Yeah.
it really does, it's life-changing.
It is. And that's why I always, when students ask me, should they go and experience something overseas, I said, go for it.
Now, as soon as
Now,
possible.
Yeah.
Before
While
you
you can, before you have a family
Yes.
and so on.
And
Just
commitments.
experience that and widen your horizons. You see so much more and you think different about
Yes.
things. when you come back.
Amazing.
But what I said is I came back because I want to come back. I had the opportunity to stay there to do a PhD, but I said no, I'm not. Then you specialize in one thing. And I missed the weather, obviously. That's what everybody's saying. But I think we've got so much opportunities here in agriculture, and that's why I'm still here.
And it's always good as a young person to go away from your country and look at your country from the outside in. Because when you're stuck in a place, that's what you see. You have no context. So to be abroad and somewhere like there, and, I think it must be very good. I also had the privilege to go abroad as a youngster. I went to Australia for a year, straight after school. And you come back with a different perspective because you've had that opportunity to look from the outside in. But back to you joining FNB. Obviously, you're bringing all those experiences with you, plus the experience of working for the commodity organization and AgriSA. And you've been with FNB, so you've obviously climbed the ladder a little bit there. Or what jobs have you done while you've been at FNB?
No, I've actually only been in this one.
Just this one,
yeah,
wow.
Just growing into it.
Incredible.
And doing things differently and so on. But no, I'm stuck. I wouldn't say stuck there, but because I'm stuck there because I want to be there.
Different way of putting it, you're well established.
Well established, yeah.
There you go.
Because I want to be there.
Yes.
That's the difference. It's not as if I'm frustrated because I'm there. I really enjoy it. And that's why I said in the beginning, a few jobs in the bank I don't want. And that's being a banker and selling credit and loans and stuff. Because then it's a different ball game. But I think the agricultural team is also, we are not a big team. We've got about 25 agricultural managers, which is normally economists or agri-economists across the country, 5 regional heads, and then our back office support staff is about 15. So as a business unit, we are about, I think, 48 people. Serving the country. So we are a very lean but mean team. And that's the nice part of being part of the FNB Agri family.
Wonderful. And if you asked the question right at the beginning, and we've come now, so I cannot just rephrase that and say that, being able to see all the commodities. What is your impression of farmers and farming, and what trends are you seeing? What do you see? What's happening? Can you comment on?
Louise, people hear that a lot and people say that a lot. And we start getting accustomed to it and think, okay, but people just say that. But we have the best farmers in the world. I'm honest, and I'll perhaps get back to that, but about a month and a half ago, we did the cattle and sheep farmer of the year judging. So we visited 3 sheep farmers and 3 cattle farmers across the country, from the Eastern Cape up to the Free State and even in the Karoo. And if you see the different farming environments or the environments where they have to farm, I mean, one of the guys in the Eastern Cape is up there in the mountains in Maclear. From his home to his cattle herd of heifers, it's 43 kilometers of mountainous terrain, and he farms in that. I don't think anywhere else in the world, people will think about that distances. I mean, in Europe, definitely not, because they're 2 towns further. If I look at the dairy industry where I came from, a lot of farmers that went out of business in the old Transvaal and the inland area, like we call it, because of pressures and economic pressures and milk price and so on. But the dairy industry is still supplying more than enough milk than for our consumers. So they just fill that gap. We can speak about grain farmers. Now the meat farmers with red meat with foot and mouth disease. The resilience of our South African farmers is just amazing. And the way they innovate and do things differently, because they know they have to do to to be successful. That's
Boermakerplan.
amazing. A Boermakerplan.
It happens. It's so
Definitely.
true.
Yeah. And that's a trend that I've seen over the last, now I must think, 10, 12, 22, 23 years, is how farmers innovate and do things differently to continue to be successful. And how the young generation come in and use technology and information to benefit that. And how the older farmers, I mustn't say old farmers, but the older generation just latch onto that and said, but they learn from the young guys. And the young guys, in terms of production methods and stuff, the practical farming, they learn again from the older guys. So that's the nice part of agriculture. It's a community. And earlier we had a meeting of the agri writers, and we spoke about agriculture and relationships. And if you're in agriculture, it's all about relationships. Doesn't matter if it's your banker or your input provider or your off-taker. Relationship with people is key.
Absolutely.
I've got a question. Through this 20 odd years that you've been doing this and seeing the rise and fall of growers and producers all over the country, what can you say is, let's call it, one fundamental thing that the guys are doing right, who's gone from being okay producers to being mega farmers or really good producers, and those guys has been, you get to a point where you are farming because you are now the 5th generation and you are struggling to make ends meet on this farm. It would have been better just to have sold the farm long ago. What can producers do not to fall behind, or what advice can you give them along that line?
Dewald, I speak a lot at Farmers' Days and so on. And one of the things I'm telling them is focus on the things that you have control over and do the basic things right. I always I use the analogy of the 2023 World Cup with the Bongi situation and so. And in chasing the sun, the wit kant and the other side. And if you've watched Chasing the Sun, there's one interview where they've asked Daan Iemand continuously about that. And he said, but don't ask me about it. I don't have control over that. That will sort itself out. Ask me about the scrums and the stuff I have control over. And I'm telling farmers, I said to them, focus on the things you have control over on your farm and forget about the hypes. There's a lot of media hypes out there which you can't control. That 20% or 30% of that might have an influence on you, you can't control that. Focus on your farm. Be a better farmer, focus on your cost of production and the stuff that you have control over. Then you will be successful. The political stuff, that will always be there, and that will sort itself out over time. And I think that's what I've seen over the last 20 years is the people that focused on how they do things and doing that better and more productive, they are the guys who are successful. The guys that's always shouting in the media and you tend to see that they fall away at some stage.
Interesting. It is exactly what you're saying makes 100% sense. But a farmer has to be a little bit of everything. He's got to be an engineer. Sometimes he's got to build dams and roads. He's got to be an accountant. He's got to do his books. He's got to be a HR and psychologist to work with staff and management. He's got to do so many things.
Yeah.
And the point is, it's difficult to prioritize and focus on that stuff, because then sometimes they will miss what has been like a very fundamental thing that's right in front of your face. We're all human, and there might be something on your farm you really enjoy, and you kind of go down that road, but you miss something else. So it's basic. Go back to basics. Go to grade 1 and go back to the basics.
Well, there's an old saying that the farmer's footprint is the best fertilizer.
Yes.
Yeah. But Louise, I definitely agree with you. It's so versatile, farmers now. Like you said there were HR and accountants and actually being a lawyer because you have to understand the laws and stuff. But I think what's important is you're not alone. There's a lot of expertise out there that you can tap on. If it came to financial management, you've got a bank account, you've got a relationship manager, whether you bank with FNB or with any other bank, you should have at least a relationship manager or a banker, and they can assist you with those things, with cash flows and stuff. You've got lawyers in town and people that you can rely on, and that's why I said it's a community thing also. If you look at our rural economy in South Africa, I might be wrong, but I would say 80 to 90% depends on agriculture.
Yes.
If you look at small towns,
Yes.
if you look at Ventersdorp where I grew up, that's agriculture. There's no mining or anything else. If agriculture suffers, the first thing that suffers is the school and the church and the local businesses. And that's why small towns tends to deteriorate, apart from bad political decisions. But if agriculture thrive, then the local economy will thrive. And that's why I always say also, and that's perhaps another topic, is support your local business. From an agricultural point of view, I tell farmers, support your local engineering business. Don't go to the next big town which you might think have a better person. It might be, but it might also not be. Because if you plow back in your local economy, they will plow back and they will help you as well.
I think I've heard people describe it like this. If you take a photograph of a group of farmers, like they're on some other committee or whatever, and you go and look at them as individuals, and you think about the number of people in the area and in the supply chain of their commodity that they are supporting. It goes all the way from IP to nursery or breeding, to planting or growing a herd. It goes all the way, and also the people that work for you. Then the people who you deliver your commodity to, and then there's the logistics, then there's the cold chain, then there's the shipping, then there's the stevedores at the docks loading the stuff, then there's the people on the other side that eventually eat the stuff if it's not fresh produce or meat that you're exporting. So if you think of that farmer, there's his face or her face on the photo, but they're actually supporting hundreds of people along the way. And it all revolves around the farmer, and he's normally the first person to spend money and the last person to get money.
And to get the least.
To get the least,
Yeah. From the whole value chain, he's the one that earns the least.
Yes. So it's an intriguing thing. And then, farmers, we were actually saying the other day when we were chatting to Agri Western Cape, people don't always stop to thank a farmer.
Yeah. But I think, and that's what I like about podcasts and stuff, and the media, is the responsibility on the media is so big to get those stories out there. Because if you look at the South African urbanization trend, I mean, I think we're now close to 70% urbanized. And a lot of those people don't know where produce come from.
No idea.
They think it comes from the local shop and out of a carton or whatever. But to tell them, actually there's a person and persons behind this, workers that deliver this to a dairy plant to get your fresh milk then the following day on the shelf. And I remember when I was little or smaller, I'm still small, but when I was younger, there used to be programs that show how things is being produced. And we missed that, I think, on TV, on national TV, to get that exposure to the industry.
Do you think there's a place on national TV for that, or do you think the broader internet, social media is more the place?
I think both, because I think a lot of our standard South African population don't necessarily have access to YouTube and stuff. They might have, but it comes at a cost. They will rather watch something else. But national TV, national radio, I think there's a space for that. Yes.
I think when you have foreigners visiting the country, it's always interesting to hear what they say, what they observe and what they see. And what I've heard more than once is that when people travel through South Africa and they travel past a lesser privileged part of our country, you see miles of shacks, but most of the shacks have got a satellite dish on them.
Yeah.
And that is for people from the first world. It's like you're seeing the third world with the first world superimposed on top of it. You can't imagine that people with such limited means will actually spend the money to get that dish, because it's the one connection that they have to the media, and people love to watch television.
But also it's a link to the outside world.
Exactly.
And I think that's a nice part. So that platforms are there. I say we, but we all must use that, because we all have a good story to tell.
Yeah.
And if I look at agriculture, there's so many good stories.
More good than bad.
Exactly.
Yes. More good than bad.
Yeah, but unfortunately, the sensation news is those that sell. So when something bad happens, that sells. But those good news stories needs to get out there, and we try to do that. If we have nice, what we call customer stories. Now, obviously, it's promotion for the brand, but it's also promotion for the client and his products. So we try to incorporate that within the bigger business as well.
One of those are actually that we also made a video for. That's how we got into FNB's offices last year.
That's correct. Ik kan Valetu.
Yes.
And
And the CGA and Kupane,
Yes. Incredible stories.
And we flight those stories at Nampo Botawil this year. I mean, that's citrus stories that we show to grain farmers.
Yes.
But that's the other thing that Louise and I have many spoken. We sit next to each other in a car for many kilometers. Is that an apple farmer doesn't know what a grain farmer does. The grain farmer doesn't know what a sheep farmer. Oh, they might know a little bit, but he doesn't know what a grape farmer. And a grape farmer doesn't know what a sheep. So they all know about each other, but they've got no idea how each other's business are run.
Those nitty gritty things that they need to know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you get the. Somebody said, but grain prices are at 5,000 rand a kg for a ton for maize, and then everybody thinks, but maize farmers are making money, or they hear the citrus
they
exports.
Don't have context. They don't have the context of what does that actually mean, and how much does that farmer have to make. How much has he had to bring in to be able to be financially viable?
Just to break even.
Exactly.
But also then you go, and we spoke about being HR and all that now. Then you've got some of our fruit producers in the country. When it's season time, they're employing 1, 2, 3, 4,000 people.
Yeah.
That is, if you just take minimum wage, what is that wage bill every week?
Exactly.
It's millions.
It's massive. It's millions. Yeah.
And at that time, they've got you guys on speed dial, I think.
No, definitely. But fortunately, and perhaps I must say that as well, we are proactive. For example, or when we see something, a disaster might strike or struck, and then we say, okay, but let's be proactive and help our farmers, because in the end we are a bank. We don't want to farm. So the last option will be to sell the farm because then it's a legal process. That's normally 3-4 years down the line. So that's the last option. We want to keep the farmer on the ground because he knows his farm. He knows how to farm it best. And that's another thing that I always tell farmers is, if you see there might be a problem, speak to us. Contact your banker, be proactive, because then we can do something. If it's too late and you're in default, then it's a legal process, and then it's out of the banker's hands. Yeah. And we now have examples with the foot and mouth outbreak, across the country. We always thought it wouldn't reach the Western Cape. Unfortunately, it did. So we said, okay, but what can we do to help you? And we put plans in processes and plans in place to assist them and go through the cycle with them.
A question on that is, how accessible is it for a grower to speak to somebody at the bank? Because now, I'm not a farmer, and I often, as much as I love them, I'm glad I don't farm physically, primarily farming. But how accessible is somebody like you at FNB? Because if you would go into a bank now and you say, I want to apply for a loan, there's a guy sitting behind a computer there and he types on the keyboard and says, either you've got it or you don't, because the computer said so. How accessible are you guys?
So there's two answers. The one answer is it's sometimes frustrating, especially for the smaller farmers, because you go through a business manager. So there's a couple of levels, and I get to that. The business managers normally sit in a branch somewhere, and they are not necessarily well known with agriculture, especially if you look at the bigger branches in the bigger towns. They might know something about it, but they are not specializing in that. So that's a challenge, and we try to address that within our structures. But in general, for the farming community, we have relationship managers, and then I must always remember, you first get a relationship manager, then a CPE or a commercial portfolio executive, and then you've got an AE, which is an account executive. So they work in levels. The AEs are looking for after the mega farmers. So they have about 20 clients, which they focus on. CPEs has a bit more. I think they've got 60 clients. And then the RMs at the bottom looking at the accounts from 1 to 60 million turnover. They look after about 120 farmers or businesses, not only farmers, businesses. So, but you will have his direct number, the relationship manager. So they are fairly accessible. In agriculture, we have our 25 agri managers across the country, which I think a farmer should have on speed dial. So he's very accessible. The moment you see something, you can phone your underclerk, for example. And that's how we work in agriculture, on that relationship model. And we are very proud of that, and we are very protective about that, because we don't want the farmer to call a call center.
Yes.
Because he's not going to get an answer there.
Firstly, he might not be able to speak to the call center.
Exactly. Fortunately, also for us, agriculture still falls under judgmental credit. So there's a person behind the credit decision, or a committee actually.
Interesting.
So the provincial, there's regional credit. They have certain mandates up to, and I'm going to lie if I say the correct amounts, but up to a certain amount they've got sign-off mandates. And above that, I think it's above 50 million, it goes to a committee which sits weekly, either on a Thursday or on a Friday.
Okay.
And then your application go through that. The nice thing is the farmer don't apply for the loan or the finance. The bank manager or the relationship manager must do that. So he, on behalf of the farmer, must, I must say, he must fight for that at a committee. Obviously with the information that the farmer gives to him, but he motivates and he helps, because he has to sell that loan again. So that relationship model is very important, and the judgmental credit side. We are trying to look at scored credit, which is the computer model, and you say plug in a couple of numbers and then you get a decision. But that's more on the lower level of turnovers.
Okay.
Thanks for that explanation, because it gives somebody a better idea. Sometimes you think the bank, you just think of the building. You don't know which people are in there and who and how it all works. And so thank you for that. I've got a question about, again, you're in your reasonably unique position that you see all these different commodities. Agriculture is probably the only sector that relies on land and access to land in order to produce something, other than maybe mining. But agriculture, so it tends to be a family business. It tends to be generational. It tends to be handed down. So there is the picture that Brian has in your mind of a family business. But then a lot has changed in South Africa, and there are a lot of emerging farmers. And emerging farmers, I'm talking about across the board. You also get people of all backgrounds, that somebody goes into agriculture for the first time. He doesn't have a family, he or she doesn't have a family history of agriculture. What do you see? What are there trends? Are both these things there? Is the one growing more? And age of farmers, that's, internationally, the age of farmers is a thing.
Yeah.
So what comment can you make on that?
Louise, I think first on the age of farmers. I think, and the official number in South Africa, I think it's about 63 or 65. But if I look...
Which is retirement age.
Yeah. But if I look at the places where I go to, commodity organization meetings, farm association meetings and so on. If I look at the faces there, they are definitely not 65. The thing is... Yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah,
I presume you're talking about the younger.
Very young. The thing is, I think the measurement that Stats SA or the department is based on the ownership of the farm. And the ownership of the farm is still, might be perhaps in the dad's name.
Yeah, with the most senior part of the family.
Yeah, but the farmer is actually the son who's 30 or 35 or so.
It explains a lot, actually.
So I think there's if you look at the actual age of the farmers that working the ground, I think we are closer to 50 than to 60.
Well, it's if I look at the stats on our social media and the people who listen to the podcast, they're between 35 and 44.
Yeah.
That's the biggest peak that, but I'm not saying those are the only people, but those are the people that's consuming our content.
Yeah.
And it fits in roughly with what Dawie's saying. Yeah.
But, go to events like Nampo Kaap. I mean, who's walking around there is young people and getting younger, actually. There's a lot of young, graduates that come back into the farm. I mean, a couple of years ago, while I was studying, and after that as well, you studied and you went out of farming and you go and work in the industry. Those guys are coming back into the farming industry quite quicker. To answer your question on the size and the transformation, if I can call it like that, new people getting into the business. I think it's very much dependent per commodity.
Yeah.
Because if you look at dairy, for example, or piggeries, it's capital intensive. Yeah. That's massive, millions amounts of money just to start up a dairy or a piggery and so on.
Just for your infrastructure.
Just for infrastructure. Startup cost, yeah. While if you go into livestock farming, extensive, it's not, the capital is not that expensive. Obviously you have to buy animals and so on. And I think that's why we see a lot of new entrants into livestock farming and into small scale grain production, maize farming and so on. Because a proper tractor and a proper planter and cultivator and stuff, it's still a decent price, but it's much cheaper than to put up a dairy plant.
Or a blueberry farm.
Or a blueberry farm, yeah. Well, I think any long-term crop, citrus, stone fruit, palm fruit, that's...
You've got to have deep pockets.
You have deep
good
pockets
friends.
For at least a
long time.
4 to 7 years before you start making a return.
If you start from scratch, if you're not if you're not acquiring existing producing orchards.
But acquiring existing is expensive. I mean, because you have to pay the seller back his capital. But I think and that's why I think commodity organizations like Grain SA and the livestock guys, they are more successful with the transformation thing and getting. I'm not saying transformation in the sense of getting black emerging farmers into the business, but from all races and colours into the business.
Call it first generation farmers.
First generation, yeah, that's
the
a
pretty
good
word.
one. That's I must remember that one. First generation farmers. So, what we also see is a lot of how can I say, professional people. In the past we called them weekend farmers.
Weekend farmers,
yeah. But they play an important role now. If you look at, for example, at stud breeders, because they've got focus, they've got money outside of agriculture that they can invest for tax purposes or whatever, but it helped the industry because it grows it. Some years ago it was frowned upon, when you see a weekend farmer at the Farmers Association. Now they actually embrace them because they bring in new thinking, new ways of doing things,
and capital from another from another sector,
and that supports our industry.
But those people coming into that, becoming investors into the agricultural sector, they're investing money that's not from the sector.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It comes from outside.
It comes from
it's
outside.
Generated outside.
And then, you look at the stud bull sales the last couple of years, how it grown, and the turnover on that. Because of that outside money coming in.
Here's a question, now that we're talking about those kind of things. What sector in the agricultural sphere that you guys are doing are you the most excited about, and which one is growing the fastest?
Yeah.
That's an unfair question.
You can give us some trends. What are you seeing?
I think the one that's probably growing the fastest, they're actually a bit on a hold now, is the nuts, macadamia specific. They grew fast and they had a very big shock.
Yes.
Post-COVID. But it's picking up again.
This year they did not too. They did a lot better
didn't
this year.
do bad. Yeah. Again, there was a lot of smaller farmers investing in that, and I think they've sorted themselves out. Now it's growing a bit, and I think they're getting now to a more economic viable size of farm. As well as the off-takers that's now being more, I would say, more geared for exports and stuff.
Okay.
So macadamias are, I would say, on the up again. The citrus industry, they had a good season, a very good season. They didn't have problems with exports and stuff. So I think that's fine. And then there's a couple of smaller ones, niche products, kiwis and berries and so, which is doing quite well in terms of exports. But all of those industries depend heavily on the exports, the export market.
Yes.
So the rand exchange rate playing a very important role. If I look at those that's for the local market, I don't think there's a lot that's growing too much and too fast in any case. Poultry, because of the price of the product, and I must add pigs, but piggeries is expensive to put up and to
You
farm
can't have free roaming pigs.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the problem. So they are kind of in a catch-22 in terms of how big they can and how fast they can grow. Okay. While poultry you can grow quite fast in terms of free-range chickens and so on. And then obviously because of food and mouth and the price of red meat, that pulls up the pork and the poultry prices.
Okay.
So that helped them a bit. So I hope that answers your question on those that's on the up.
You haven't said which one you're interested in.
The one I'm most interested in, and I'm probably biased, but I'm the red meat, both cattle and sheep. I think we are a meat-eating country. Yes. So
no good stories ever started with a salad.
Exactly, yeah.
Except maybe in India.
What Ox said, you can't scrum on salads. So no, but I think it's my love for cattle and sheep. That puts me in that direction.
It was with Yanni Strydom from AgriSA. We also spoke about that, and I said for South African farmers, doesn't matter what you farm with. You can farm with macadamias or blueberries or grapes or whatever. There's two things that's important to them, or that they find beautiful. It's big machines, and it's big meat producing cattle. There's very few things that come close to that.
Yeah, no, definitely. But I mean, if you look at the average, I think across the board, farmers somewhere have an investment somewhere in animals, whether it's part-time.
A lot of them do.
They have that livestock component somewhere. Even the grape farmers, or stone fruit, somewhere they have perhaps a Karoo farm with sheep. So that's always in the back.
Interesting. So if you think about it with your FNB hat on, you look at our agricultural sector in the sort of medium term, short to medium term. What are your thoughts? How are things looking? Are things looking good? Are there good opportunities? Are there threats? What are you seeing?
Louise, I think start with the opportunities. We are in the business of supplying food for people. And with a growing population, we will always be selling food, whether it's local or export markets. So obviously we have our challenges, and we can speak about that. But from our perspective, and I speak as FNB, we've identified agriculture as one of the important industries for that specific reason of supplying food. If I can give you a number, 34% of FNB business book is agriculture.
Wow.
So that's a third of our business is agriculture.
That's incredible.
So we are in the business, and we're still investing in the business because it's important. We're not going to shy away and say, but no, obviously we have our challenges and we work through that, but we are not disinvesting in the industry.
If I'm sorry to interrupt you, but if I'm asked as a comparison, what are the other 2/3?
The other one, it's not 2/3 the others, but it's commercial property finance, structured finance, franchises, SMEs, general business as a whole.
But which one of those are the single that's got like a 34%, like you've said?
The next biggest one.
The next biggest one will be commercial property finance. So that's your malls and office buildings and stuff. But I think they're about 14% or something. So in essence,
agriculture is the single biggest one.
It's the single biggest one.
It's like a third.
Yeah.
Wow.
I didn't know that.
If we, because we are, obviously FNB and RMB is part of First Rand, which is our mother company. Obviously, RMB also has agriculture, but that's the corporate agriculture, corporate listed companies. Between FNB Agriculture and RMB's corporate side, we make up, I think, 4%, just below or just above. But let's say 4% of First Rand exposure. So that's massive. And that's why agriculture is important for us.
Sure.
Wow, I'm kind of almost speechless. I didn't know it was that big.
Yeah, no. Look, people in the bank, they always say, you must go and herd some sheep or something. But then, when they do the results, they actually see how important the business is.
FNB's our bank.
Oh, that's great to hear.
This is not sponsored by FNB.
No.
We've got to add that.
No, but we are on our bank all the time. We're working with FNB. I had no idea that your footprint in agriculture was that big.
Yeah, no.
So that was interesting to hear.
And we are growing it because I think where we're still lagging behind is secondary agriculture, manufacturing and food processing. Yes. There's still a lot of opportunities for us there. So that's to answer, why agriculture is so important for us, and why we are positive about it. is because it's a big part of us. It's a big part of the local, the rural economy, as we spoke before. And we still have, and I don't know the numbers, so don't ask me, but we still have the biggest footprint in terms of branches in South Africa.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Look,
there's
there's
a lot of
Yes.
branches, bank branches.
There's a lot of branches that has been closed down
Yes.
because there's no feed in the branch. But we try to be the last one in the town to close. Normally our competitors close before us. So that's why agriculture and the rural economy is so important. I said, obviously there's a couple of challenges, but we follow a through the cycle credit policy. So we don't want to bank you necessarily when you're when the industry is top performer, because we know it's going down. We want to bank you through that ups and downs and get a smooth ride, if I can say it. So we look at the challenges and we keep that in mind when we do business.
Wow. Very, very interesting and insightful. I had no idea about that massive footprint that you have. And it's true. One does see your branches in the small towns still. I want to take you back to something else you said earlier. Sorry, did you want to say something?
I'll get, perhaps I must say that when obviously we look at branches, and I'm not in the branch side, that's retail. We have the saying, because technology is so important, the app and online banking and stuff. We have a saying, technology when you want it, but human when you need it. So nice, you can do your online banking and stuff, but when you need a person, there's a phone number, you can call them.
Yeah, excellent. You mentioned something earlier, and I think you wanted to go back to it. You said about how resilient South African farmers are, and that we are the best farmers in the world. You said, I want to talk about it again. I'm giving you that opportunity.
I think if you look at the challenges that we had in the recent, I would say, 5 years post-COVID. Now, obviously, COVID was good for agriculture. People made more breakfast and they bake and stuff, and they stayed at home and
Put
they
a spotlight on it.
Yeah. And we were an essential industry, so that helped a lot. But post that, we had logistical challenges in terms of exports, ports, but costs definitely.
Massive.
That increased by 400% post-COVID. So farmers had to deal with that, because now obviously the exporters filter it down to the farm level. He's the last, like Dewald said, he's the last one to get paid. We had disease outbreaks, avian influenza, African swine fever, now foot and mouth, which is a massive challenge countrywide. We always thought, okay, it will be isolated up in the north. It's not going to be there. We've got floods, KZN, we've got droughts still up here in the Karoo and the Northern Cape. But through that all, farmers are still investing in agriculture. That when farmers make money, they don't buy something else. Well, sometimes they do, but we can. I always tell them, it's nice to have a beach house at Tarmanis, but it's not a productive asset. Yeah. Don't buy a new beach house or a new Land Cruiser. Invest in profit generating assets. But farmers normally invest back into the industry, not for themselves, but for their kids and for the future. And farmers are just so resilient and so positive by nature and optimistic that they put money back into
I remember when they come into his office, they're all optimistic because they're looking for help.
I know, and it's funny and cynical and funny, but we always say, the farmers are really the difference between commitment and dedication. Do you know this one?
Yeah.
It's very nicely illustrated in an English breakfast. The chicken is dedicated, but the pig is committed.
That's true.
And the farmers are committed because they probably own the land. Most of the times they own the land and they've got to make it work. And they always say, when's a farmer's best year? Next year.
Yeah.
And there are very few other industries that have to look at things like that.
Dewald, you made a good point. The optimist side. I mean, we are all optimistic. If you're in agriculture, you're an optimist. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been here.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I think they are also realistic in terms of cycles. And that's what I say always to farmers when I present economic information. If you look at Stats SA quarterly GDP numbers, last year agriculture declined by 8.3% on an annual basis.
Okay.
But we must take into account it came from a high base because of the year before that. We had a midsummer drought in the grain industries. We had outbreak of foot and mouth. So you must read that into the numbers. But then Stats SA also, the quarterly numbers, they compare the first quarter of this year with the fourth quarter of last year.
Yes.
And in agriculture, it's seasonal. You can't do that. So I always tell them that just look wider and compare it with the previous quarter or the same quarter of the previous year, and then you see there's actually growth. Because if you look at the quarter-to-quarter numbers, there was a decline, but nothing is happening in the first quarter in agriculture. There's a bit of fruit export still, but it's not massive. And then if you have a late season like we had last year or this year, the maize harvest shift from the second quarter mainly to the third quarter, and that has a massive impact on the numbers.
But what can we do to change those people's minds?
Now, unfortunately, because of the industry, all the industries, they have to measure that on a quarterly level.
Yes.
Yeah, it's understandable to measure by quarterly level, but why can't they, for agriculture, measure first quarter versus first quarter?
No, we must just go and extract that numbers and explain that, because it's their reporting lines.
Yeah.
Okay.
What we can do is jack up their numbers and make sure they have the correct numbers, because I think they were still lacking a bit. But my good big friend Wandile Sishlobo, he's on the council there, so I know he's hard at work to get the numbers correct.
And he certainly is, huh? He's really amazing. We're still waiting for him. We will get him here still.
We've almost had him here.
We've almost had him. But, okay, so I think we kind of want to wrap now. Is there any kind of message that you would like to leave for listeners about FNB and agriculture? Anything in particular? We've spoken about a lot of things. Maybe you do have something. I don't know.
Louise, I think what's important, and I said that last week to a journalist asking me about the sugar industry, because there was a press release about the massive amount of sugar imports that rose, I think, 400%.
Wow.
And what can we do to help our local farmers? And I said, okay, first of all, buy local. When you go and buy sugar, for example, look at the packet and see where it's coming from. So buy your local products, support local. I think there was a campaign some time ago, local is lekker.
Yeah.
I think we must revive that, specifically for agriculture. I mean, we have to compete with subsidies in other countries. Brazil, India, they highly subsidize their sugar industries. But in Europe, they get, I think, 25% average subsidies as farmers.
Yeah, it's incredible, actually.
And then we still have to pay 30% tariffs to the US for our exports. Hopefully that can be sorted out. But I think support local. That's important from a consumer side. From a producer side, I mean, I've mentioned it. Agriculture is big for us. We are not going to go away quite quickly. We will be in the industry. And we are very optimistic about the industry. Yes, there is industries in between that will have their challenges, like the red meat industry, but we will support them. And we've supported them with the previous outbreaks. We've helped our clients to get through that, and we will help them again this time around, because we don't want to lose clients, and we don't want to lose farmers in the end. We will rather if there's other clients or other banks' clients that suffer, we will actually try and help them, obviously.
Yes.
Good for business. But I think just be positive about the industry.
Very, very good advice. It echoes the sentiment of farmers anyway, interestingly.
Yeah.
Interestingly. Thank you. We have a closing tradition, and that's for the very last question. It's a question that was left by one of our previous guests. Random question.
Okay.
For someone that they don't know. Who the next person is. So, and it's amazing, we've got this book of wonderful handwritten questions from people. You so seldom see handwriting today. And Dewald is going to fish up one there for you right now.
What is your favorite and least favorite part of working in the agricultural industry?
Sure. I'll start with the lekker one. The favorite part is meeting people. Meeting new people in new places. Not necessarily every day, but at least every week I meet new people, and I don't always remember their names, but I remember the faces. And seeing the country. I'm in a fortunate position to travel a bit, and we still have the most beautiful country that I know. And I've traveled a bit overseas, so I'm honest about that. The least favorite part is probably the days that I have to sit in the office and looking into open plan offices with a lot of people trying to sell personal loans or stuff. So that's probably my least favorite. The best part is when we go out to farms and meet people.
Meeting people is always a pleasure, isn't it?
Agriculture is a relationship game. That's for sure.
The other question I had in mind is this one. How has COVID changed your outlook on life? It was between that one and that one.
So now you're getting both.
That's it.
Just like that. On a Friday afternoon, he's making you answer two difficult questions.
Two of them.
I only mentioned which one I was looking at. He's free to answer if he's willing to.
That might sound funny, but I actually enjoyed COVID. In the sense that, not the suffering.
The lifestyle changes.
The lifestyle changes. Yeah. I grew, you know by now, I grew up on a farm. My older sister, I've got 3 older sisters, and the one that's closest to me, we differ 5 years. And I'm the last one. So I grew up mostly alone, because, she was a teenager when I was young, and we don't play together. So I'm used to be alone with, on a farm that's far away from shops, so I don't need to go to the shop every day. So that time, it didn't bother me not to see people or not to go anywhere. And that was the nice part of COVID, that lifestyle changes. Yes. So I actually enjoyed it. Sometimes I actually longed to it.
Yeah, so it was this untried experiment that no one had ever done before. Corporate people having to work from home. I think there's some people will say it was hell, but as you say, it gave us all pause.
Yeah.
To actually kind of.
And I must say, actually before COVID, a couple of years before COVID, we started with this hybrid working thing. If you can work from home, obviously not all of the staff can, but if you can, do that once or twice a week. And now still we are only back 3 days a week. They are trying to get us back to 5, but there's not enough office space for everybody to come back now. So we are still on that hybrid. And I'm more productive in certain things that I must do. So if I need to write an article or build a presentation, I'll do that when I work from home.
Okay.
Because there's no outside disturbances. Yeah. Kids are at school, wife is working, so that's all good.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. It's been very interesting. It's been inspiring, and we have learned a lot.
Yes,
Thank
for
you
sure.
so much for coming.
Thanks, Louise. Thanks, Dewald. No, it's an honor for me to be here. I've watched your podcast
Thank you.
a couple of times.
Wonderful.
So last year a lot because I had to do the judge of the of the communicator of the year. So that's actually when I was more intrigued by the podcast. So it's an honor for me to be here.
Well,
Thank you.
wonderful. It's great to have you. Thanks so much, Dawie.
Thank you.